Welcome back to Butler on Business. We have the honor of a surprise guest, former President Bill Clinton.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. See, I saw last night what happened there in Wisconsin, and I just want everyone to understand, especially Democrats nationwide, that I feel your pain. I've been there.
Chris Marola, how you doing? Yeah, it's obviously, we will have people tell us, how'd you get Bill Clinton on it? So, Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Well, that was my Bill Clinton impersonation.
Well, my daughter and my son can do good imitations. The only thing I can imitation is a 58-year-old guy with white hair.
That's pretty well. Of course, I do a few others, but I thought that Bill Clinton was fitting, being that they're claiming he went off message, and actually, promoted Romney and kind of stuck it to Obama, and did some things that seemed to promote the Republican agenda. So I thought it was kind of funny.
Now, I know a lot of the Republicans are making a big stink over the fact that Obama did not come to the aid of that mayor. He tweeted out an I love you. But, exactly. Romney didn't come and campaign with Walker either. That's
true, but in all fairness, Romney's not the president. So Romney didn't have to. I mean, win or lose, Romney wasn't going to, it wasn't going to harm him much, but it certainly harmed Obama. And this means Wisconsin's in play. And so this is pretty interesting stuff. So, it just seems to prove over and over again that Obama, is not popular, and that his numbers on the economy, obviously, as we know, continue to get worse. And there's a new CBO, Congressional Budget Office report, that's basically saying, look, if we don't fix things, if we don't change things right away, we're going to be in some serious trouble. And there are some numbers that came out that just, they're staggering. The CBO reports that the massive health care overhaul, Obamacare, failed to address the explosion in health care costs, and mandatory federal spending on Obamacare and health care will now increase by 93%, from 5.4 of GDP to 10.4 of GDP in the next 25 years. So, contrary to the lies, Obamacare is blowing the budget sky high.
Well, a couple things. First of all, I have absolutely zero confidence in the Congressional Budget Office. Any glimmer of confidence I had is when they helped to perpetuate the myth that Obamacare was going to save us money. Now, I know their mandate is to score the plan that's presented to them, but if you'll recall, the head of the CBO had come out in opposition, or basically had painted what we now know to be the case, that it was going to blow a hole in the deficit, even bigger than one that already exists now. So so Obama brought the head of the CBO into the White House, had lunch with him, and the very next day the CBO changed its tune and gave the Democrats political cover. Number one. Number two, they're always wrong if you go by what their estimates were for Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, you just go on and on. Number three, we're already well over 500% of GDP. These bozos aren't counting the unfunded liabilities. They're not looking at the gap budget. I know there's supposedly this nonpartisan committee of a bunch of wise people, but in my opinion, it's a this is interesting to know. A collection of baboons is actually called a Congress. So, you have, well, it is, a flock of geese, a Congress of baboons. Well, the CBO is part of that Congress of baboons. They're a bunch of baboons. I don't have any. And Chris, the other thing is, part of their notion is that how disastrous it would be if we were to cut government spending. That's one of their arguments.
Yeah, I agree that they are at times more political than they should be. Case in point, since we're talking about Bill Clinton, recently, in the last 4 days, when he was introducing Barack Obama, he stole the stage, the narcissist that he is, and he said, "Remember me, I'm the guy that gave you 4 years of balanced budgets." Did you hear about that? Well, the truth of the matter is that was a CBO trick. They were pretending, the CBO was, that all the money was still in the Social Security Trust Fund so that it looked like the balanced budget occurred. There was no balanced budget. There was no surplus under Bill Clinton. That was all a trick, and they succumbed, the CBO did, to the pressure of the Clinton administration to make it appear as if there was a surplus. The truth is there never was a surplus because all that money that was past tense in the Social Security Trust Fund is no longer there because Lyndon Johnson and the Democrat Congress in 1967, under the Social Security Act of 1967, took all the money out of the Social Security Trust Fund, put it in the general fund, and then spent all of it on all these entitlements. So the big whopping unfunded liability for Social Security is directly related to the fact there's no money in the trust fund, and the Democrat Congress and Lyndon Johnson caused it.
And, but I will say, I mean, it's a bipartisan problem. Nixon could have changed it. Ford could have changed. I mean, there have been several opportunities.
Well, it wasn't as easy as you think because, I mean, Nixon, of course, wasn't a conservative, but even if he had been a conservative, he still had a liberal Democrat Congress. They weren't going to go along with that. Same thing with Ford. Even Reagan, most of the time, I mean, the entire time he was in office, the whole entire House was under Democrat control. He barely had a Republican majority for a few years, for I think the first half of his 8-year term. So, I mean, in all fairness, we really are in a bad shape. And credit to Bush, he actually did have the right idea on Social Security reform, but the Democrats wouldn't let it go. They, filibustered whatever they threatened to do. They weren't going to let it happen. Bush did have the right idea on Social Security reform, which was to let younger, taxpayers 54 and below keep a third of their Social Security taxes and put it into a private fund.
I agree with you there, although I'd like to see the whole system privatized. But certainly he did make the effort. He touched the so-called third rail.
That was gutsy. Got to give him credit for that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that he did that went nowhere was the notion of letting all the small businesses come together in a group to purchase health insurance. Chris, we got to go, buddy.
All right, man. Take care.
Good talking to you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sure thing.
Coming up after the break, we're going to get into a little bit of history. This is Butler on Business. Stay with us.